Obviously, things have evolved a ton, and things are getting, they're getting very real right now, and they're really heating up in a positive way. And I think, we have global stable coins. We have the rise of digital dollar stable coins like USDC. We have China's digital currency. We have, crypto really becoming an asset class. And then from a policy perspective, I mean, we've got the Financial Stability Board working on policy recommendations. We've got the Fed very engaged on issues here. The OCC and Brian Brooks, who's now leading the OCC, putting some of these topics front and center. We've got multiple hearings that are continuing to go on. So really very, very different, and sort of the policy game and the policy attention is really different now. Maybe Kristen, just to start, what are you seeing? I mean, this sort of getting real. What are the big policy attention focus areas that are happening right now?
Yeah, no, I think you're right. The focus right now for most policymakers is on something called a digital dollar. I think there are a lot of different versions of what that could be. And if you talk to a House Democrat or a Senate Republican, they're going to have different ideas of what a digital dollar is. But there is now consensus among policymakers that it is a good idea to upgrade our money. And I think that that's progress. I think for a long time, cryptocurrencies weren't particularly tangible or useful in their minds, but there is this first step of let's figure out a better way to do payments. Let's figure out a way to compete with China. Let's figure out how to bring more people into the financial system. And they're seeing a digital version of the dollar as a way to do that. So I think the challenge that we have as an industry and what we're trying to talk about is that, yes, China has this very committed plan that has come from the top down. And, the American system is different than that, right? What we have here are innovators and entrepreneurs that are going out and experimenting and building and growing. And that it's this marketplace of innovative ideas and services that I think is going to keep the US competitive going forward. And it's, kind of incumbent upon us at the Blockchain Association and others to help policymakers understand all of the great work that is going on, like with USDC and other projects that are out there. So I think we have a pretty optimistic future. I'm happy to go into more detail on FSB and OCC as well, but I'm
curious for Perry-Ann or John, there's some concrete stuff that's coming down the pike, right? The OCC is trying to figure out, how are banks going to be? What should banks' involvement be with this? The FSB is going to set guidelines, that's going to ultimately drop down at the legislative level or around the world. Some of this is response to what's happening organically in the market. Some of it's in response to what Facebook is doing. But what are you seeing as tangible policy issues that may emerge out of all this?
Yeah, I mean, I think, going back to sort of where we started, right? Payments was really the only thing we were talking about. I mean, there was this nebulous idea of like, this is an open protocol, anything could be built, but no one was talking about DeFi or CryptoKitties or stable coins, right? USDC or others. So, I think, the existential issues continue to be, I think at the supranational level, and I think, again, Kristen and Perry-Ann could definitely comment on this, does it affect monetary stability or not? And at what point is that flippening? And when how do we make sure it doesn't actually get to that point? How do we nurture innovation, but actually then not get to a point where we can't claw it back? I think that seems to be sort of where the global folks are. And then at the at the federal level here, I think, AML, anti-money laundering, terrorist financing, all of those continue to be serious risks. It's what people seem to know the most about, the securities issues. And then, there's still a lot of really, really important tax issues, and they're only getting more complicated as these new applications get built. So it's difficult for policymakers to keep up because they're just so dynamic.
Yeah, Perry-Ann, has the engagement level changed? Like, given that these are now, lots of three-letter agencies are now focused on this or whatever, or however you want to describe it. Has the engagement level changed? Are people leaning in more? is this a time that there's critical mass that's kind of being built there?
Yeah, one of the things that I think is really interesting, we have seen a huge change in the tone of the conversation towards blockchain technology and Congress since the pandemic. And remember, like, let's take a step back just a year ago when Facebook had announced the Libra project. And there was this huge pushback to Facebook, to crypto, to digital assets. And we have seen almost a 180 in that conversation. The pandemic has forced Congress to go digital, which is kind of funny because most members of Congress, the average age is like 50 to 64 years old. It's a much older generation. They're very traditional. They're now conducting business on their smartphones. They're holding hearings remotely. They're doing things they never thought they would ever have to do. And it's highlighting the need to have strong digital critical infrastructure. And then when Congress passed these stimulus bills, the point of that was to get cash in the hands of Americans as fast as absolutely possible. And it forced Congress to re-examine big issues in our financial system. And just for example, according to the Fed in 2018, 22% of US households were underbanked. So Congress had this response to the pandemic of distributing these stimulus funds through the banking system, and that highlighted some of the problems, but also the need to ensure that our most vulnerable populations are not being left behind, especially in the middle of a global health pandemic. And that has led to Congress taking a much closer look at things like digital currencies and digital payments and digital dollars and in projects like stable coins like USDC. So we're in an incredibly impressionable moment in history, and it's pushing the conversation forward in a very positive way.
There's sort of some catalyst moments here. Yeah, go ahead, Kristen.
No, well, I was going to say, I think Perian's right. We are at sort of a catalyst moment. And, I don't think, if you look at the landscape in general, for policymaking in Washington right now, Congress is almost at a total standstill due to the election, unless it's something directly related to the pandemic. So I don't think we're going to see any great legislative victories, but I do think, in addition to the issues that John mentioned, I do think we're going to see some great stuff out of the OCC. We've got one of the industry's own over there now who really understands the technology. And I think that there are policy clarifications that can be made that will make crypto less scary to the traditional financial services world. Yeah. Like, there will be acceptance of the fact that that banks should be able to interact with this technology, and then hopefully ultimately potentially get a payments charter. I think what's important to know about the OCC is that it is a very special agency. It's independent. It's housed under Treasury, but it's independent. So it doesn't have to go through the rulemaking process or getting approval from the OMB and OIRA and all of the traditional regulatory processes that most executive branch agencies have to do. And it also doesn't need a vote of a commission, because unlike the SEC or the CFTC that have 5 voting commissioners that may disagree, this is a one-man operation. So I think that we'll be able to see some fast action, this summer and this fall coming out of there, and I think that will help pave the way for other regulators over at the SEC and FinCEN to have more comfort with advancing some clearer, more better policies.